What's up guys, it's Topsy and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be discussing one of the characters from my custom SpeedDuel set, Duel of Fortune Cup, a custom set based around the Fortune Cup arc from the Yu-Gi-Oh 5'Ds anime. Before we do begin, I did want to go and mention real quick that I did already make an entire video talking about everything you should know before going ahead and watching this series. It's not necessary, but it gives you a lot of context as to what decisions I ended up making for each of the characters for this set. So if you're interested in checking that out, it will be linked in the description below. Also, before we do begin, I did want to go ahead and mention real quick that these videos do take quite a bit of time to go ahead and produce, so I would really appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe to show your support for the channel. But with all that being said, let's dive right in. All right then guys, so we are back once again, and today, as you can see, we are going to be talking about Greiger, one of the characters from the 5'Ds anime that I wish would have gotten a more fleshed out deck, because the reactor strategy is actually really cool aesthetically and the way that it plays. So I'm really excited about today's video. If you're unfamiliar, Greiger is one of the characters that enters the Fortune Cup and ends up dueling against Yusei and Leo/Luna. And he's a really cool character that also makes a second appearance during the Darksea arc as well. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a fully fleshed out strategy, so building a deck for him was a bit difficult, so I had to take some creative liberties. That being said, let's dive right in and begin with both the skills. Alright then, so first skill up for Greiger, we have Terror from the Sky, which is going to be his main skill. And it reads, Spell Reactor RE, Summon Reactor SK, and Trap Reactor Y FI gain 800 attack during the battle phase. Once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Effect number 1, reveal one Flying Fortress Sky Fire in your hand and place it at the bottom of the deck, then draw one card. Effect number 2, once per duel, you can discard one card, then add one Spell Reactor RE, Summon Reactor SK, or Trap Reactor Y FI from your deck to your hand. I really like the way this skill ended up coming out. It's a really reminiscent skill that reminds me a lot of the skills that came out of the Battle City final set. I like the fact that this skill is very heavily focused in on one of the boss monsters that Greiger is abusing in the Fortune Cup, that being Flying Fortress Sky Fire. I feel like this skill does a lot for the strategy. It makes your small reactor monsters actually somewhat viable during the battle phase because they are fairly weak for what they are. For the most part, I really enjoy the way this skill ended up coming out, and I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on this one. After that, we have the second skill in Unrivaled Grit, and that reads, you can't special summon any monsters from the extra deck except Dark Machine monsters. Once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills, but each of them can only be activated once per duel. Skill number 1, pay 800 life points and special summon one reactor monster from your hand. Skill number 2, pay 800 life points and special summon one reactor monster from your graveyard. And finally, skill number 3, target one reactor monster you control. For the rest of this turn, it's treated as a tuner monster. As you can see, this is a very different skill compared to the other one. This version of the skill is trying to utilize the reactor monsters for Greiger's synchro plays. In the anime, he ends up using two different synchro monsters, and I feel like this skill right here makes him actually be able to make those monsters a lot easier, for the very fact that, realistically speaking, I think I only gave Greiger one tuner monster because it was the only one that I could actually fit into his strategy. So being able to utilize the reactor monsters as tuners as well, while balancing it out to being a once per duel activation, seemed very fair to me. And still, with this skill, we still have the reactors behave as a main state of the strategy. So I quite enjoy both these skills. But of course, as usual, I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts regarding these two skills. I think they're really fun and really fitting for him as a character. Alright then, so now that we're done with talking about the skills, let's move on to the tuners. And as I mentioned, there's only one of them, with Black Salvo. And this card is incredible. It's a very powerful tuner monster with the ability on normal summon to revive a Dark Machine monster from the graveyard. Essentially, this is a one-card synchro monster, and I like it quite a bit. Not only is it a card that he ended up utilizing in the anime, but it also has it be heavily restricted to one type of monster, that being Dark Machines. I feel like for the most part, this card should be completely fine in speed duels, just for the very fact that, well, it's again limited to only Dark Machine monsters, and he also used it in the anime, but give me your thoughts. I like it a lot. Now that we're done talking about the tuners, let's move on to the non-tuners of the deck, starting off with the Flying Fortress Sky Fire. I kind of want to focus in on the Fortress monsters before we talk about the rest of the deck. So, Flying Fortress Sky Fire is the boss monster of Greiger's strategy alongside the Synchros. And this card is incredibly powerful. It has a fairly difficult summoning condition where he has to be summoned off the effect of Summon Reactor SK, but it's very much worth it. This card has the ability of once per turn being able to discard a card to target any card on the field and destroy it. But on top of that, it has added bonus effects where when your opponent normal special summons a monster, or when your opponent sets a card, they're able to go ahead and pop it and then burn your opponent for 800 damage. Very, very powerful monster, but its summoning condition is fairly difficult to pull off. So I feel like that balances itself out really well. Really awesome card from the anime. I like it a lot, and I feel like in speed duels it would have some home to try and make him as like a really viable boss monster, but give me your thoughts. Okay, so continuing on with the reactor monsters, we have Summon Reactor SK. I like these cards quite a bit. Not only are these the cards that Greiger ended up using in the anime, but they are really interesting. Summon Reactor SK follows a little gimmick the deck has where you're able to burn your opponent for activating a certain card type. He burns your opponent when they summon out a monster for 800 damage. But additionally, he's going to be the main way you're going to be bringing out the Skyfire from the deck, because he has the ability that if you control a Spell Reactor, Trap Reactor, and Summon Reactor on the field, you're able to tribute them all off and special summon the Skyfire from the deck. Also, it's a level 5, so it's a little difficult to bring out to the field, so I feel like that balances out for the strategy. Next up, we have Trap Reactor Y FI. This is the reactor monster that burns your opponent when they activate a trap card. Again, another card they ended up using in the anime, and it's very necessary for the reactor strategy. Last reactor monster we have here is Spell Reactor RE. This card is the, well, as you can imagine, the one that burns your opponent for when they activate the first spell card. Again, part of the reactor strategy, a card he ended up using in the anime, and a necessary component for the Skyfire. Now that we're done with the reactor monsters, let's move on to some other cards that he ended up using in the anime. Next two cards up are Darksea Rescue and Darksea Float. These two cards are cards that he ended up utilizing in his duels against Pro in the Dark Signer arc. And these cards are really interesting. Not only are they Dark Machine monsters that are very fitting with the deck that he has going on right now, but they give you extra bonus effects when they're sent to the graveyard. Darksea Rescue allows you to draw a card if it's used for a synchro summon, while Darksea Float gives you a draw 1 if it's destroyed by card effect. So these cards are pretty cool. Not only did he activate them in the anime, but they're Dark Machine monsters, very fitting in this deck. Next up, we have Blast Fear. Not only do I think this card is very fitting for Greiger as a character, but it's a card that already exists in the anime. It involves burn damage and involves Dark Machine monsters, so this felt like a perfect fit for him in this deck. Okay, so last up for the monsters, we have both Motor Kaiser and Motor Shell. These two cards are really interesting because not only are they Dark Machine monsters, but they kind of just look like they belong to the reactor deck. I don't know if I'm alone on this one. I just feel like they look similar, and I feel like this is a cool way of introducing these cards into speed duels. These are cards that actually Bandit Keith ended up utilizing in the manga, but never in the anime, so I feel like they were fair game. They give you tribute fodder, which is great as well, so I like that quite a bit. Could they be as strong in the speed duels? Maybe, but I feel like they fit the strategy really well. Give me your thoughts. Alright then, so now that we're done with all the monsters, let's move on to the spell cards. First one up is Foolish Burial. Not only is this like a mandatory print for any speed duel set, but this card works great in Greiger strategy, allowing you to set up your Black Salvo play, so this card felt like a mandatory addition. After that, we have a pairing with Nobleman of Crossout and Nobleman of Extermination. Nobleman of Crossout was a card that he actually ended up using in the anime. I forgot against who. I believe it was Yusei, if I'm not mistaken. And on that same note, since he has Nobleman of Crossout already, I figured that Nobleman of Extermination works great as his form of back removal, so this pairing felt really fitting for him as a deck. Alright then, continuing on with cards he ended up utilizing in the anime, we have Star Blast. Now, I do believe this card got hit or is hit in Duel Links. I believe it's at 1 right now. Essentially what this card does, it allows you to pay life points in multiples of 500 to reduce the level of a monster in your hand by the amount you paid. If you have a level 8 monster, you can pay 2k life points and then reduce its level to 4. This is a really powerful card, but because it came out in Duel Links really early on, I figured like we can transition it into speed duels as well, and if it became a problem, you could always just hit it with the limit 1 or whatever. I think it's cool. He uses it in the anime and it helps the deck quite a bit. And for the last spell in the deck, we have 2-for-1 Repair Job. This card is specifically here to help out with the Motor deck. Additionally, it just helps out Dark Machine monsters in general. This card gives you the ability of banishing a Dark Machine in the grave, which the whole deck is nothing but Dark Machines, to special summon an engine monster. And because the deck only has 2 of them, I feel like the targets aren't too crazy. Additionally, if a Dark Machine monster is destroyed, you're able to summon out a token on the field, which is going to be pretty great because it gives you the ability to later on tribute it off for like a Summon Reactor as an example. I feel like as far as powerful cards go, it's probably on the more balanced side, but again, I'm willing to hear you guys out if you think it's too strong, but give me your thoughts. Okay, now that we're done with the spells, let's move on to the trap cards. First one up is Fake Explosion, another card that he ended up utilizing in the anime, and it's pretty great because it gives you a fairly easy way of breaking out your SK reactor from your hand or graveyard. Next up, we have Pulse Mines, a really good generic trap card for machine-oriented strategies. It helps your monsters survive, so I feel like it fits the deck great. Next up, we have Scrap Garage, and this card is pretty powerful, but I think it's okay. So essentially what this card does is if a machine monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, it allows you to then target 3 Dark Machine monsters in the graveyard specifically and special summon them with their stats reduced to 0. And this is a really powerful effect that gives gives you a fairly easy way of getting access to all your reactor monsters if they're all in the graveyard already. I do think that it's really powerful to special summon 3 monsters from the graveyard, but I figured because it's speed duels and your zones get clogged up very quickly, it's a card that's fairly difficult to go ahead and resolve or get maximum value out of it. Of course, if this card is too strong, we could easily replace it with almost anything else, but again, give me your thoughts. And finally, we have another pairing of cards with Widespread Dud and Widespread Ruin. These two cards are just meant to be really good generic ways of dealing with opponent's monsters. Widespread Dud would be the new addition to speed duels, which gives you the ability to target 2 monsters on the field, and essentially when any of those 2 monsters leaves the field, the other one goes with it. So it's a really easy way of getting your opponent to not want to attack one of your monsters at risk of losing their own. I like this card a lot. It gives a lot of versatility in speed duels, and I think it would see a lot of play if it's were to be printed. And of course, we know Widespread Ruin already sees a lot of play in speed duels, so easy addition to this deck as well. All right, then last up we have the extra deck for Greiger, and first one up is Dark Strike Fighter. I love Dark Strike Fighter. I think it's such a cool looking card, and thankfully it's the rotted version, so we don't have to worry about like crazy FTKs with this card, but nevertheless it's a very powerful monster that does get nerfed quite a bit because of speed duels rulings with no main phase 2, and again because this card is a rotted. Essentially what this card allows you to do is tribute a monster on the field and burn your opponent equal to its level times 200, which is really crazy. But the craziest thing that you could do with this is that before that it was not a once per turn effect, and additionally you could do this during main phase 2 after you've dealt all battle damage to your opponent, tribute your whole field and beat your opponent there. I feel it because we're in speed duels, I feel it should be fine, but and also it's a card that he used in the anime already, so I figured I had to include it here. And last card for this extra deck is Dark Flattop, a card that he ended up utilizing during the Dark Signer arc. I like this card a lot because it works really well with the reactor strategy, allowing you to revive either a reactor monster or the Sky Fire from the graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. And that's essentially all this card is really trying to do. I like it for that very reason. It gives you a way to revive your boss monster if you're in a pinch, so it felt like a great addition to the strategy. All right then, and with that was Greiger's deck. Here is the deck profile so you can get a visual of it, and as usual in the description below you'll see everything annotated so you guys can just copy and paste from the deck profile to the skills and etc. And if you want to use any of these skill arts that I've used for these videos, they're all going to be linked in my Twitter below and as well in my Discord. So if you're interested in picking up those high resolution pictures, they'll be available for you guys to pick up right there. But with all that being said, guys, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. I do ask that if you did end up enjoying today's video and would like to support the channel, to please leave a like and subscribe. It goes a long way in helping the channel grow and giving us traction to get more people's eyes on this channel. But if you'd like to take your support a step further, then you can always become a channel member. For only 99 cents, you get a badge next to your name, custom Topsy emojis, and a shout out at the end of the videos. On that note, huge shout out to our current channel members, those being Pushx to Start, Zedric, and finally Sekigano. Huge shout out to all of you guys, and thank you for the continued support on the channel. I can't express just how much I appreciate it from you all. Thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end, and I'll catch you in the next video. See you guys.